Carl Jung believed that human life is profoundly influenced by patterns far deeper than logic can explain. He often spoke of archetypes, synchronicities, and the symbolic structures that shape our identity, not just from external experience, but from the moment we enter existence. Your birth month, Jung would argue, is not a coincidence. It is a symbolically loaded portal, carrying energetic and psychological imprints that influence your temperament, emotional rhythms, and even your inner conflicts. Each month of birth aligns with subtle cosmic and archetypal forces that resonate within the unconscious mind, subtly shaping how you move through the world, connect with others, and respond to challenges. In this lecture, we will explore how your birth month is more than a date, it's a blueprint. Through the Jungian lens, we will uncover the psychological truths hidden in the timing of your birth, and why understanding them might illuminate the deeper narrative of your life. Carl Jung's theory of synchronicity stands as one of his most mysterious and spiritually charged contributions to psychology. It reflects the belief that meaningful coincidences are not accidents, but manifestations of an underlying connection between the inner world of the psyche and the outer world of events. In this light, your birth month is not simply a matter of chance or biology, is a synchronistic imprint, a symbolic key that opens up a deeper understanding of your place in the world. Jung saw life not as a random series of occurrences, but as a tapestry of symbols, archetypes, and unconscious energies woven together by invisible threads. Birth, in particular, he viewed as a threshold moment, a crossing from the unknown into the known, from the archetypal realm into individual existence, and the moment of that arrival holds significance beyond what the conscious mind can initially grasp. The month you are born in, with its unique environmental qualities, collective associations, and cosmic alignments, acts as a mirror reflecting the energies that were present at the time you entered the world. Jung was deeply interested in astrology not because he saw it as predictive in a mechanical sense, but because he believed it reflected archetypal truths. In other words, the positioning of celestial bodies and, by extension, the timing of your birth serves as a symbolic representation of the inner psychic structure. Your birth month may coincide with certain psychological patterns, not through cause and effect but through meaningful correlation. In synchronicity, the inner and outer correspond, not by force, but by resonance. Jung understood the psyche as being shaped by archetypes, universal templates that exist within the collective unconscious and influence how we perceive, behave, and relate to life. Each birth month may carry associations with certain archetypal energies, and these archetypes act upon the unconscious in ways that subtly color your emotional tones, your life challenges, and even your path toward individuation. For instance, someone born in a month symbolically associated with endings like October or November might unconsciously be drawn to themes of transformation, death and rebirth, or inner depth. Meanwhile, someone born in spring months, such as April or May, may resonate more naturally with beginnings, growth, and vitality. This is not to say every individual conforms to a rigid mold based on their birth, but rather that these themes may be part of the inner symbolic language that quietly influences their journey. Environmental conditions tied to the seasons also play an influential role in shaping early psychic development. Jung was aware of how the external environment interacts with the inner world. A child born in the depths of winter, surrounded by stillness, longer nights, and a subdued emotional atmosphere, may unconsciously absorb those conditions into their psychological rhythm. That rhythm can affect how they process emotions, how they relate to solitude, and how they respond to change. By contrast, those born in summer months, when life is more extroverted, may develop with different rhythms of energy, expression, and relationship to the outside world. These seasonal imprints are not deterministic, but they contribute to the shaping of one's unconscious associations, which may remain hidden until explored intentionally. Jung did not believe that we are trapped by our circumstances. He believed in the unfolding process of becoming. In that process, understanding the timing of your birth can help you become more aware of the archetypal patterns that might be influencing your life from the shadows. Through reflection, introspection, and the tools of depth psychology, as dream analysis, active imagination, and symbolic interpretation, an individual can begin to see the way in which their birth month contains hidden clues about their psychological structure. The value of this knowledge is not to define or limit, but to bring the unconscious into consciousness so that greater freedom and wholeness can be achieved. When Jung spoke of individuation, he meant the lifelong process of integrating the various parts of the psyche, both conscious and unconscious into a more unified whole. If your birth month is part of the symbolic narrative of your soul's journey, then to understand it is to participate in that individuation process. Instead of seeing birth as a fixed point, Jung encourages us to see it as an invitation, a beginning rich with meaning and insight. The psyche, ever symbolic, remembers the moment of entrance, and the circumstances of that entrance become part of the soul's myth. Synchronicity invites us to look deeper into the patterns of our life with a sense of reverence and openness. Instead of brushing aside recurring numbers, symbolic dreams, or birth-related patterns as meaningless, Jung would have us consider what they might be trying to say. What motifs have followed you since birth? What symbols or seasons stir something inexplicable in you? What emotional atmosphere does your birth month evoke, and how does that match your inner world? These are not idle curiosities, they are portals into the deeper self. Jung knew that the unconscious does not shout, it whispers, and it often speaks through the symbolic language of time, nature, and inner resonance. The month you were born into may hold more than sentimental value. It may be one of the first whispers from the soul to the self, asking to be heard, understood, and integrated. Carl Jung's work emphasized that the human psyche is not an isolated system but is constantly interacting with the vast, symbolic world around it. Within this symbolic system, archetypes play a crucial role. Archetypes, in Jung's theory, are innate, universal patterns of behavior and thought found within the collective unconscious. They are not learned but inherited and shared across cultures, emerging in dreams, myths, and rituals. Each archetype embodies a particular psychological theme, such as the hero, the mother, the trickster. The sage influences how we perceive ourselves and the world. When applied to the concept of birth months, we begin to see how different periods of the year are symbolically and archetypally charged, each carrying its own set of psychological energies. These energies subtly shape our emotional development, character tendencies, and unconscious drives based on the archetypal environment present at the time of our birth. Across cultures and ancient systems of understanding myth, the wheel of the year, indigenous teachings, each month is associated with archetypal themes. These aren't simply cultural traditions, they are symbolic interpretations of natural rhythms that align with human psychological patterns. For instance, January is often associated with beginnings, initiation, and structure, energies resonant with the archetype of the father or the elder. Those born in this month may unconsciously absorb these symbolic themes into their own identity. They may feel a natural inclination toward leadership, order, or responsibility. February, associated with transition, deep reflection, and vision, carries the energy of the mystic or the dreamer. March, coinciding with the equinox and the emergence of spring, aligns with the archetype of the warrior or the rebirth. Themes of courage, awakening, and new beginnings. As the year moves through cycles of life, growth, decline, and renewal, so too do the archetypes that inhabit those months. April may bring the archetype of the lover or the initiator linked with passion, discovery, and youthful intensity. May might embody the archetype of the nurturer or the creator, with a focus on fertility, blossoming, and grounded beauty. Each subsequent month builds on this symbolic journey, not just in nature but in the soul. June may resonate with the archetype of the explorer or the companion, July with the protector or the caregiver, August with the leader or the king. September often brings the scholar or the judge, pointing toward introspection, learning, and balance. October might align with the shadow or the seer, symbolizing death, transformation, and hidden truths. November calls forth the alchemist or the depth digger, as nature dies back and mysteries rise. December, closing the year, reflects the sage, the crone, the wise one, an energy of completion, spiritual insight, and preparing for the next cycle. Jung understood that archetypes are not static, they are activated within the individual based on life circumstances, personal development, and unconscious resonance. Being born in a certain month does not confine someone to a specific archetype, but it may indicate the energetic or symbolic themes that unconsciously inform their internal blueprint. A child born in August may not always embody leadership externally, but they may wrestle with the inner tension of authority, responsibility, and the drive to command or influence. A November-born individual may not consciously seek transformation, but they may consistently encounter life experiences that force them into deeper reflection, inner alchemy, or encounters with the unknown. These patterns are not necessarily fate, they are invitations to engage with the symbolic narrative of one's birth in a more conscious way. This understanding allows individuals to relate to their birth month not as a label, but as the reflection of the symbolic field into which they were born, rather than relying solely on charts or fixed definitions. Jung would encourage a more introspective exploration. What emotional tone does your birth month evoke in you? What stories, dreams, or memories repeat themselves? What themes keep showing up in your life that seem to echo the season, the atmosphere, the archetype of that month? These recurring patterns may not always be obvious, but they reveal themselves through symbols, synchronicities, and the narrative arcs of your life. The archetypal energy of your birth month may be less about prediction and more about orientation. It points you toward the deeper psychological work that your soul longs to do. The process of individuation, which was central to Jung's teachings, involves integrating these archetypal energies rather than being ruled by them unconsciously. If you were born in a month, symbolized by the warrior, for instance, your path may involve learning the difference between healthy assertion and destructive aggression. If born under the influence of the nurturer, your work may involve setting boundaries or learning to care for yourself as well as others. These energies, once made conscious, can be refined, balanced, and transformed. They are not destiny in a deterministic sense, but deep symbolic themes that, when explored, become tools for self-knowledge, healing, and wholeness. By exploring the archetypes associated with your birth month, you begin to decode a language your soul has always spoken but perhaps never fully understood. This symbolic literacy is not just a psychological exercise, it is a path to awakening. It invites you to live not at the surface of your life, but at its depth, in tune with the unconscious symbols that have shaped you from the moment you arrived in this world. The time of year into which a person is born carries more than calendar significance. It forms the environmental and emotional backdrop that shapes early development and imprints itself into the psychological rhythm of the individual. Carl Jung understood that the psyche is not separate from nature but deeply intertwined with it. The seasons affect not only external life like temperature, activity, but also the symbolic and emotional tone in which a person's first impressions of the world are formed. When we speak of how seasonal birth impacts temperament, emotional regulation, and psychic rhythm, we are referring to the subtle, enduring ways the natural environment of birth acts as an emotional atmosphere, informing unconscious associations that remain with us long into adulthood. A person born in the depths of winter, when the world is silent, cold, and still, may unconsciously absorb a sense of inwardness and introspection. The world they enter is subdued, often dark, and carries an atmosphere of retreat or hibernation. This can translate into a temperament that leans toward contemplation, emotional depth, and sensitivity to solitude. Winter-born individuals may feel a deep pull toward the inner world, finding comfort in reflection and discomfort in overstimulation. The lack of light may also leave subtle imprints on the emotional body, sometimes inclining the individual toward melancholy, solemnity, or existential questioning. These tendencies are not flaws, they reflect the environment in which the self first began to sense the world. By contrast, those born in spring arrive into a world reawakening. The light is returning, life is stirring, and nature is in a state of rebirth. This symbolic setting of emergence may produce a temperament that is energetic, curious, and open to new experiences. There may be an unconscious expectation that life brings renewal, hope, and movement. Spring-born individuals often feel aligned with growth, change, and creativity. Their emotional tone may tend toward optimism, and their inner rhythm might mirror the quickening pace of spring itself. There's often a psychological affinity with beginnings, and they may frequently find themselves at the front end of projects or ideas, drawn to the excitement of initiation. Summer births coincide with warmth, vitality, and outward expansion. The world is at its fullest expression, bright, colorful, alive. This can cultivate an emotional rhythm marked by enthusiasm, sociability, and external focus. Those born in summer may have an easier time connecting with others, expressing joy, or thriving in environments of stimulation and light. The full light of summer may also encourage a temperament that prefers clarity, visibility, and movement. Yet beneath that brightness can lie an unconscious pressure to always perform, shine, or remain outwardly stable. Emotional regulation for summer-born individuals may involve learning to navigate moments of quiet or vulnerability, as these might feel foreign compared to the extroverted rhythm of their birth season. Autumn births fall into the time of slowing down, gathering, and preparing for the inward journey of winter. This season speaks of reflection, transition, and the beauty of decay. Those born in autumn often carry a psychological rhythm that includes sensitivity to endings, awareness of change, and a natural capacity for insight. There may be a quiet wisdom, an internal preparedness for life's fluctuations, and a more measured emotional pace. Autumn-born individuals might feel deeply attuned to cycles and transitions, often becoming the ones others turn to in times of crisis or change. Emotionally, they may be reflective, appreciative of depth, and skilled in finding meaning during periods of uncertainty. Jung recognized that the unconscious remembers more than just dreams. It remembers atmospheres, patterns, and rhythms. A person may not consciously recall the weather on the day of their birth, but their body and psyche have already begun to interact with the environment from the very beginning. Light levels, noise, social activity, and family dynamics that shift with the seasons all contribute to the formation of emotional memory. These early memories are not always accessible in words, but they live in patterns: how one regulates emotion, whether one feels safe in silence, how one reacts to cycles of intensity and withdrawal. The rhythm of the world during our birth months subtly attunes us to a tempo that continues throughout our lives. This is why Jung would suggest that looking at the season of your birth isn't about prediction but recognition. What rhythm does your body follow most naturally? What time of year do you feel most yourself? When do you feel most alive, most withdrawn, most inspired? These questions point to a deeper understanding of your psychic rhythm. They help reveal whether you are moving with or against the grain of your natural emotional cycle. For instance, someone born in the stillness of January may feel overwhelmed by fast-paced environments and find restoration in solitude, whereas someone born in the vibrant energy of July may struggle in long periods of quiet but thrive in community and creative exchange. Understanding these seasonal imprints also helps with emotional regulation. When we are disconnected from our natural rhythm, we often feel out of sync. Anxiety increases, emotional responses intensify, and we lose touch with inner stability. But when we begin to work with our innate timing, we become more grounded. We can create environments that support our emotional flow rather than disrupt it. This might mean allowing for more quiet in certain seasons, honoring rest as much as productivity, or learning to embrace change rather than resist it. Jung believed that the psyche seeks balance, and when we understand the influences that shaped our earliest development, including the season of our birth, we take an important step toward restoring that balance. The more we align with our unique psychic rhythm, the more we live from the center of who we truly are, rather than chasing someone else's pace or emotional map. Carl Jung believed that the psyche communicates in symbols, and those symbols often emerge from nature, myth, and the cosmos. He saw astrology not as a superstition but as a symbolic system that reveals deeper psychological truths. From this perspective, the astrological and symbolic meanings of birth months can serve as powerful mirrors of the unconscious mind. Each month carries both mythological resonance and cosmic positioning, and when viewed through a Jungian lens, these meanings can help uncover the hidden architecture of the personality. The symbols attached to a birth month are not arbitrary. They represent ancient archetypes that have persisted across cultures and time, shaping our sense of meaning and identity in ways that remain largely unconscious until explored. Astrology was of particular interest to Jung because it offered a symbolic language for understanding psychological energies. He often referred to horoscopes and birth charts not as predictive tools but as expressions of archetypal influences, patterns that exist within the collective unconscious and manifest in individual lives. When we consider the sun sign associated with a birth month, we are not looking at fate but at psychological predisposition, symbolic orientation, and energetic tone. For instance, someone born in March under the sign of Pisces is symbolically associated with a water element, spiritual intuition, and emotional depth. These symbols speak to an unconscious pattern and orientation toward the mystical, the imaginative, the emotional that may be embedded in that individual's psychic structure. Similarly, someone born in August under Leo is symbolically aligned with fire, leadership, creativity, and the inner child. These are not rigid definitions but symbolic gateways into the deeper layers of the self. Each birth month corresponds to a particular symbolic season, planetary influence, and set of mythic motifs. These motifs show up in cultural narratives, historical traditions, and even seasonal rituals. January is symbolically connected with beginnings, ruled by Saturn, and reflects the archetype of the elder, the strategist, or the gatekeeper. The psychological energy of this month is serious, introspective, and structured qualities that may become part of the unconscious framework of those born within it. February, associated with Aquarius and Uranus, points to the archetype of the visionary, the rebel, the one who disrupts patterns in search of innovation and truth. This symbolic identity may be subtly internalized as a tendency toward uniqueness, detachment, or intellectual creativity. As we move through the calendar year, the symbols deepen and shift in tone. March, aligned with Pisces and the end of the zodiac cycle, is rich with themes of endings, spiritual dissolution, and rebirth. This can imprint a psychic pattern of emotional sensitivity, porous boundaries, and deep compassion. April introduces Aries and the archetype of the warrior linked to initiation, boldness, and fire. People born in April may find themselves driven by instinct, passion, and a need to assert themselves in the world. May brings the earthy, stabilizing energy of Taurus, connected with the archetype of the builder, the sensualist, the guardian of beauty. These individuals may carry an inner world defined by patience, loyalty, and a love of comfort and form. June's symbolism through Gemini and the archetype of the messenger reflects duality, curiosity, and communication. People born in this month might unconsciously navigate life through thought, exchange, and the desire to bridge opposites. July, with Cancer and the archetype of the nurturer or the protector, holds themes of emotional memory, home, and maternal instinct. August's Leo brings the archetype of the performer, the monarch, or the inner child. Those born here may seek recognition, authenticity, and self-expression as vital aspects of the soul's journey. September's Virgo energy, ruled by Mercury, is archetypally aligned with the healer, the analyst, the devotee. Symbolic associations here involve order, service, and the sacred in the ordinary. October's Libran balance introduces the archetype of the diplomat or the lover, focused on harmony, beauty, and justice. These symbolic influences may produce an unconscious need to mediate conflict, seek partnership, and refine aesthetic or moral values. November's Scorpionic depth is aligned with the archetype of the alchemist, the seeker of truth, the transformer. Individuals born in this month may be drawn to intense emotional experiences, psychological transformation, or inner resurrection. Finally, December with Sagittarius and Capricorn blends the archetypes of the philosopher and the sage, channeling energies of wisdom, expansion, and long-term vision. When viewed symbolically, each birth month becomes a doorway into archetypal understanding. The symbols are not static, they shift and evolve within the psyche over time. What matters is not the rigid adherence to zodiac descriptions, but the willingness to engage these symbols as reflections of the unconscious landscape. Jung saw symbolic interpretation as a living art, a way of communicating with the soul in its own language. The month of birth, then, becomes a rich symbolic message from the self to the self, a cosmic metaphor pointing to themes that may define your emotional life, your deepest longings, and your path of individuation. To engage with these symbolic meanings is to step into a dialogue with the unconscious. It is to honor the mythic dimension of life, the idea that you are not merely a product of random chance, but part of a larger pattern of meaning unfolding in time. The symbols associated with your birth month can serve as mirrors, guides, or invitations to explore the unspoken forces that shape your decisions, your relationships, and your inner growth. They invite you to consider what archetype lives behind my instincts, what myth am I unknowingly living, what inner pattern is trying to become conscious through the season of my birth. These are not questions for the intellect alone, are invitations to enter the symbolic field of your own becoming. Carl Jung's concept of the collective unconscious offers a profound framework for understanding how deeply connected we are not just to personal experiences, but to the shared memory, patterns, and symbolic codes passed down through generations. When considering the significance of one's birth month through the Jungian lens, it becomes evident that we are not merely born into time but into a collective psychological atmosphere. Your birth is not an isolated event. It unfolds within a cultural, generational, and cosmic context that carries patterns far beyond the individual psyche. The link between the collective unconscious and generational birth cycles suggests that the timing of your arrival into the world may resonate with shared archetypal themes present across your ancestry or society, shaping your role within a larger narrative you may not initially perceive. Jung taught that the collective unconscious consists of universal archetypes, primordial images that repeat across time and culture. These archetypes do not belong to one person, they belong to all of humanity. However, how and when these archetypes become activated in an individual depends on the historical, familial, and even astrological conditions into which that person is born. Birth months, when seen symbolically, may function as markers of these archetypal moments. Across generations, people born in certain months may unconsciously inherit similar emotional patterns, life roles, or psychological tasks. These generational imprints are not the result of coincidence, but of what Jung would call synchronicity, meaningful alignment between external events and inner psychological states. For example, if multiple members of a family line are born in a month associated with transformation and depth, such as November, they may carry a generational theme of emotional intensity, hidden truth, or psychological rebirth. These individuals might unconsciously take on the role of confronting what previous generations could not, secrets, or suppressed instincts. This is where the connection to the collective unconscious becomes personal. Each person, by virtue of their birth month, may be living out a symbolic pattern that connects them to ancestral memories or unresolved energies within the family system. Jung's theory of the family soul resonates here, pointing to the idea that unresolved psychological content doesn't disappear. It gets passed down until someone is conscious enough to process it. The cultural collective unconscious also plays a role. The period of your birth exists within a particular historical and societal mood, which imprints itself on your early environment. Being born during times of war, social unrest, spiritual revival, or technological advancement exposes your psyche to the dominant archetypes of the time, whether that be the warrior, the orphan, the prophet, or the innovator. These archetypes become embedded not just in media, politics, and public language, but in the emotional tone of your early life. Even if you cannot name it, you absorb it, and that absorption becomes part of your inner narrative. Jung would encourage us to explore how these generational archetypes continue to play out in our current lives, asking, what am I carrying that doesn't belong to me alone? There is also a profound symbolic logic to the repetition of birth patterns across generations. If you were born in the same month as a grandparent or a distant ancestor, this synchronicity may suggest a psychological or spiritual inheritance. Jung believed in the deep interconnectedness of time and psyche, what he called Akazel connecting principles. The birth month itself becomes an anchor point around which the unconscious clusters emotional memories, archetypal energies, and ancestral stories. This cluster may show up in your life as recurring dreams, relationship patterns, internal conflicts, or a deep affinity for things you cannot logically explain. These are not random, they are echoes of the collective unconscious seeking expression through your individual life. To work with this generational and collective inheritance, Jung emphasized the importance of active engagement with symbols, dreams, and inner imagery. Dreams that occur around your birthday, especially, may carry heightened meaning. They might reveal archetypal material rising to the surface, connected not only to your own personal journey but to the lineage and epoch you are part of. Reflecting on those symbols can lead to profound insight into the ways you are participating in healing, continuing, or transforming the story of your ancestors and your generation. Moreover, the collective unconscious influences how we relate to societal roles, values, and expectations that are unconsciously attached to different times of the year. Someone born in December may find themselves unconsciously linked to themes of wisdom, closure, or spiritual insight roles that society, religion, and tradition associate with the end of the year. This psychological environment shapes not only self-perception but how others perceive you. Over time, these unconscious expectations may create internal pressure to fulfill roles you never consciously chose, yet somehow feel destined to carry out. Jung's view of individuation, the process of becoming one's true, whole self, involves becoming aware of these collective influences and integrating them consciously. To individuate, one must distinguish what is truly theirs from what is inherited, collective, or archetypal. Understanding how your birth month places you within certain generational or symbolic cycles can help you do this. It can show you where your story began before you even knew it had, where the collective narrative intersects with your personal one, and where you have the power to choose differently. Recognizing the psychological and symbolic inheritance of your birth timing allows you to see yourself not as isolated but as part of a meaningful continuum of human experience, unfolding across time and soul. The timing of your birth is not simply a biological event but a symbolic threshold that may shape the emergence of specific psychological traits, inner conflicts, and unconscious motivations. From a Jungian perspective, every moment in time is filled with archetypal meaning, and birth represents an intersection between the personal and the archetypal realms. To say that your birth month may influence your shadow traits and life themes is to recognize that certain unconscious patterns begin forming not only based on family dynamics or early childhood events, but also through the larger symbolic field. You are born into. Carl Jung emphasized the importance of facing one's shadow, the hidden or repressed parts of the psyche that we deny, fear, or project onto others. When we look at birth timing through this lens, we begin to understand that certain life themes and psychological challenges may arise in resonance with the archetypal energies present during the season or symbolic signature of one's birth. The shadow is not merely negative, it includes any aspect of the self that has been excluded from conscious identity. These can be emotions, desires, instincts, or even talents that did not fit the narrative we adopted early in life. Jung taught that whatever remains unconscious will be projected onto others and will continue to influence behavior from the shadows. Your birth month may correlate with certain symbolic or archetypal patterns that, when not consciously integrated, become hidden within the shadow. For instance, someone born in July, a month symbolically associated with nurturing, emotional depth, and family, may unconsciously reject vulnerability or emotional expression if their early environment failed to validate those traits. Instead of embracing their natural emotional rhythm, they might repress it, projecting sensitivity onto others and adopting a false sense of emotional invulnerability. Likewise, an individual born in March, a time linked to rebirth, transitions, and intuitive flow, may struggle with structure or boundaries. If they were raised in an environment that did not support their dreamlike, imaginative qualities, those traits might be cast into the shadow. As a result, they may become overly rigid or skeptical, disconnected from their own intuitive nature, while criticizing those who express it openly. The conflict between the outer persona and the inner symbolic blueprint begins to create tension. Inner split between the self they think they must be and the one that longs to emerge. Jung believed that such internal splits often originate in the mismatch between innate psychic tendencies and the external environment. And birth month symbolism can provide a lens to examine where those splits may have formed. Each season brings with it emotional atmospheres, expectations, and symbolic messages that may interact with the growing psyche. Autumn births, often symbolically associated with wisdom, letting go, and transformation, may carry themes of internal depth, contemplation, or endings. If an autumn-born individual is raised in a fast-paced, emotionally shallow environment, their inclination toward depth may be misunderstood or suppressed, causing them to develop a shadow trait of emotional detachment or cynicism. Similarly, those born during the brightness of summer may unconsciously internalize the pressure to be joyful, outgoing, and productive. If they fail to meet this unspoken expectation, they might repress sadness, neediness, or introversion, all of which quietly move into the shadow and eventually express themselves through imbalance, burnout, or emotional outbursts. Jung's idea of the compensation mechanism in the psyche is essential here. The psyche naturally seeks balance by developing unconscious material to counterbalance what is overdeveloped or one-sided in consciousness. A person with an overemphasis on achievement, perhaps symbolically linked to a Capricorn or January birth, which often correlates with responsibility and structure, may develop a shadow filled with neglected spontaneity, play, or emotional openness. That shadow material might surface through dreams, projections, or recurring life difficulties, urging the individual to embrace the disowned parts of themselves in order to achieve psychic wholeness. Life themes are also connected to these shadow dynamics. Your birth month may highlight certain repeating patterns, interacting the same type of relationships, experiencing cycles of loss and renewal, or struggling with a particular identity conflict. These themes are not random, they echo the symbolic messages of your entrance into the world. Jung encouraged a symbolic reading of life, viewing our personal stories as expressions of larger archetypal patterns. If your birth aligns with a symbolic month associated with the hero archetype, your life may involve repeated tests of courage, trials of endurance, or calls to lead. Yet if you reject this call out of fear, conditioning, or repression, that archetype may become part of the shadow. You may then encounter it externally in the form of others who embody what you deny in yourself, stirring admiration, jealousy, or resentment. Understanding how your birth month may have influenced these inner dynamics allows for deeper self-inquiry and more intentional shadow integration. It can help uncover which aspects of yourself have been disowned because they did not match your environment's expectations. cultural norms, or personal fears. Jung believed that the work of psychological growth is not to eliminate the shadow, but to become aware of it and to integrate its contents consciously. This allows the traits once feared or rejected to become sources of power, creativity, and authenticity. The patterns that emerge from birth month symbolism are not fate, but invitations to deepen self-awareness when met with curiosity and courage. These symbols become keys, unlocking doors to a fuller understanding of your emotional complexity and your soul's deeper journey. Carl Jung taught that the process of individuation, the path to becoming whole, requires a deep and conscious engagement with the symbolic elements of one's life. Among these elements, few are as overlooked yet potent as the timing of one's birth. When we consider the symbolic and psychological weight of a birth month, we begin to see that it may offer a unique blueprint for inner development, offering clues about the hidden purpose and destiny encoded within the psyche. Understanding personal destiny through the integration of birth month symbolism is not about subscribing to superstition or rigid belief systems, but about entering into a dialogue with the unconscious and allowing symbols to speak in their native language. Jung believed that each life holds a specific pattern or design, and that the path to wholeness lies in uncovering and living out that pattern with consciousness and integrity. Your birth month may be one of the initial signatures of that pattern. The psyche is not bound by linear causality. It is formed and nourished through symbolic resonance. The month you were born in is not just a date, it is a symbolic container shaped by the archetypes active during that time. Each month carries emotional and energetic qualities derived from nature's rhythms, mythological associations, and collective memory. These qualities do not dictate your future, but they may describe the psychological terrain you are meant to navigate in your lifetime. By becoming aware of the symbolic energy of your birth month, you begin to access an archetypal map that can guide your decisions, relationships, creative work, and even your spiritual path. For instance, someone born in September may resonate with themes of discernment, structure, healing, and service qualities associated with the symbolic archetypes of the healer and the analyst. This person may feel an inner calling to bring order to chaos, to refine and perfect, or to dedicate themselves to causes greater than personal gain. If these themes are integrated consciously, they can shape a life of purpose and meaning. But if ignored or resisted, the same person may feel chronically unfulfilled, constantly searching for perfection or drowning in self-criticism. The symbolic energy of their birth month provides both the challenge and the solution. It reflects a core theme of destiny that unfolds through conscious engagement. Jung emphasized that symbols are living realities within the psyche. They are not mere metaphors, but dynamic forces that influence how we think, feel, and act. When you contemplate the symbolic meaning of your birth month, you engage with these forces directly. You begin to notice the motifs that repeat in your life, the kinds of people you attract, the types of challenges you face again and again. These are not random, they are part of the soul's journey, reflecting the deeper intelligence of the unconscious. Your birth month becomes a portal to understanding the myths you are living, often unconsciously, and offers you the opportunity to bring those myths into awareness so they can be lived intentionally rather than passively endured. The process of integrating birth month symbolism into your understanding of destiny also involves recognizing the recurring patterns in your personal narrative. These patterns are often clues to the archetypal energies trying to emerge through you. If you are born in a month associated with transformation and death, such as November, you may notice that your life is punctuated by periods of dramatic change, symbolic deaths and rebirths, and encounters with emotional or spiritual depth. Rather than resist these patterns, Jung would urge you to explore them symbolically. What are these cycles trying to teach you? What part of you is dying so that something more authentic can be born? The answer is often found in the archetype of the alchemist, which guides those on the path of deep inner work. Destiny, in Jung's view, is not imposed from the outside but arises from within. It is the unfolding of the self, the central organizing principle of the psyche that seeks to manifest its full potential through the events, choices, and relationships of a person's life. Your birth month may be one of the earliest expressions of that self, encoded with symbolic messages that point toward your soul's unique work. When you ignore these messages, you may feel lost or divided. But when you honor them, even without fully understanding them, you begin to align with the deeper rhythm of your being. You become less reactive to external circumstances and more responsive to the inner direction of your life. This symbolic approach to destiny does not requires openness. It invites you to listen inwardly, to reflect on the significance of your own story, and to ask how your life might be shaped by deeper patterns than logic alone can explain. By working with the symbolic energy of your birth month, you are not reducing yourself to a label, you are expanding your awareness of the many dimensions that contribute to your identity. Jung's work reminds us that true freedom comes not from rejecting destiny, but from consciously participating in its unfolding. Your birth month is not your fate, but it may be one of the first invitations to begin the sacred work of becoming who you were always meant to be. It is not a prediction, but a whisper from the depths of the self, waiting for you to listen and respond with presence, courage, and curiosity. Jung's psychology was rooted in the belief that the unconscious holds both the keys to our suffering and the seeds of our transformation. One of the most powerful tools for accessing the unconscious is the symbolic method, engaging with dreams, archetypes, synchronicities, and symbols to reveal the hidden truths within us. When it comes to understanding your birth month through this lens, the question is not simply what season or zodiac sign you were born under, but what inner symbols were planted at the moment of your arrival and how they continue to influence the unfolding of your life. Using dream work and self-reflection to unlock the deeper purpose behind your birth timing invites you to approach your existence as a mystery to be lived and discovered, rather than a fixed story to be controlled or defined by external narratives. Dreams, Jung believed, are the royal road to the unconscious. They bypass the limitations of the ego and express the voice of the deeper self in a language that transcends logic. Symbols, images, and archetypal patterns. Over time, many people notice that dreams recurring around their birthday or during the same season each year seem to carry a deeper emotional weight or symbolic importance. These dreams may be windows into the archetypal energies that were active during the time of birth, offering images, feelings, or scenarios that reflect the deeper soul themes encoded in your life. If you were born in October, for example, and consistently have dreams involving mirrors, duality, or justice, these may not be coincidental. They may be symbolic echoes of Libra's archetypal energy, the balancing of opposites, the search for harmony, and the confrontation with projection. Jungian dream work does not seek to interpret dreams in a simplistic, linear way. Instead, it involves a process of amplification, connecting dream symbols with myth, art, culture, and personal experience to understand what the psyche is communicating. When dreams contain seasonal elements, archetypal figures, or imagery tied to your birth month, such as blooming flowers for spring, decaying leaves for autumn, snowstorms for winter, they often carry messages about the rhythm of your soul's journey. These symbols may not tell you what to do, but they offer direction, insight, and emotional resonance, pointing you toward aspects of yourself that are longing to be seen, healed, or integrated. Self-reflection deepens this process. By consciously meditating on the symbolic and emotional atmosphere of your birth month, you begin to notice how your inner world resonates with outer patterns. How do you feel during the season of your birth? What events tend to happen in your life during that time? Are there particular emotional states that arise predictably each year around your birthday? These patterns are meaningful. They are not merely habits or moods, but signals from the unconscious that your soul is engaging with its own origin point. This cyclical return is more than a calendar event, it is a symbolic moment when the psyche becomes more sensitive to the deeper story it has been living. Jung viewed the psyche as moving in spirals rather than straight lines. Each year we pass through the same symbolic points, but with new levels of awareness, experience, and maturity. Revisiting the symbolic energy of your birth month through reflection allows you to notice what has changed, what remains unresolved, and what is calling for attention. You may realize that certain goals, dreams, or relationships emerge around your birthday not randomly, but because the soul remembers its original rhythm and seeks to realign with it. Reflection on these moments may reveal long-standing inner conflicts, unacknowledged desires, or spiritual longings that the ego has neglected but the self continues to carry. Jung's method of active imagination can also be applied here. This involves entering into dialogue with the images or feelings that arise when you meditate on your birth month. If your birthday evokes a strong imager, blazing sun, a frozen lake, a dark forest, you might imagine entering that scene, asking the symbols what they want you to know, what they represent in your inner world, and how they relate to the journey you're on. Through this process, symbols cease to be abstract ideas and become living present as guides, allies, or challenges placed along the path of individuation. You may discover that the symbols associated with your birth month are not just decorative, but directive, they hold clues about the deeper meaning of your struggles, gifts, and destiny. This kind of symbolic self-exploration requires patience, openness, and a willingness to suspend the need for immediate answers. Jung often reminded his students that meaning emerges through relationship between ego and self, consciousness and unconsciousness, symbol and soul. When you engage your birth month as a symbol, not a fact, you open a sacred conversation with the deeper intelligence of your being. You begin to understand that your timing was not accidental, and that even if the full meaning of your arrival is not yet clear, it is unfolding with precision and grace. Through dreams, reflection, and active engagement with the psyche's symbols, you begin to inhabit your life with greater awareness and intention. You begin to listen to the whisper of the soul, which may have been speaking since the moment of your birth.